You could have said no and just walked away. If you could live that day over, now what would you say? I'll be your master. You will be my slave. I'll even go with you when you go to your grave. Now that you've met me, what will you do? Will you try me or not? It's all up to you. I can bring you more misery than words can tell. Come take my hand. Let me lead you to hell.
My sister was the one she was a criminal investigator up in Lame Deer, and she did enter a meth house, and she did die from her contact in that home less than 4 months, and it was very difficult.
If you're doing meth, then you probably won't have time for your kids or anything that they're involved in.
To deal with somebody who's on meth is to deal with somebody who has no perception of reality. Trying to gain information from them in order to keep my officers safe is a very difficult task because they don't understand what's going on around them.
Drinking, smoking pot, doing anything, I don't really want to do it just because I know it's going to hurt me in the long run with fighting.
I love my kids, and I was never really I was into them, but I wasn't because I was so worried about myself doing drugs. So I'd go lock myself in my bathroom and tell them, don't you dare open that damn door, or I'll spank you, because I was in there feeling my needle.
It's the devil's drug. I've never met anybody that has tried it that didn't get hooked on it.
Not all of our families support us and be like, go show some native pride and everything like that. Some don't support us to go out and go for the sports or anything. They just think negative and everything. They're like, you're nothing, you're worthless, you're gonna be what I am. So some people might not know what native pride is.
The Englishman said little children should be seen and not heard. The baby remembers all things from past life and say everything 2 times. And so they put you down, but you got an old spirit trapped in a little body.
Kind of hurts because it makes you feel like you have to grow up real fast, and you don't really have a chance to have a childhood at all, really.
And so they found all happiness is inside. The 7-pointed star, the Great Spirit, that's 1. Mother Earth, that's 2. The 4 directions, north, south, east, west, that's 6. Where's the 7th direction? In here. Everybody looking out there. It's not out there. It's not in the casinos. It's in here. You be happy with you.
Native Americans are one of the most isolated minority groups in America. Their history is one of abuse by the majority population, leading to the loss of culture, land, language, and self-determination. Most of the target tribes are located on government-designated reservations in rural areas far removed from the general population and the land they once inhabited. Many reservations are located in remote rural areas. As a result, they are places of underemployment, grinding poverty, and reliance on government assistance, where residents live in aged mobile homes or poorly constructed conventional houses. Drug cartels know that on many reservations there are high levels of substance abuse already, so they move in and take advantage of that addictive behavior and replace whatever the substance being abused, alcohol, marijuana, or something else, with meth addiction.
My power is awesome. Try me, you'll see. But if you do, you may never break free. Just try me once and I might let you go. But try me twice, and I'll own your soul. You could have said no, and just walked away. If you could live that day over, now what would you say?
HUD officials felt that, oh, well, when you test, it's like asbestos, which it's really not, because asbestos is a long-term effect. That's my understanding of how it is, and most of the people who have been exposed to asbestos, they live for numbers of years before it really affects them. In this case, meth, and like I said, I use my sister as an example, is short-term. Depending on the home, one we have is vacant, and then we have 3 that have personal belongings in them. And based on the test, they say yes, everything has to go. So definitely frustrating, because we have done some projects within the year. We've put in new furnaces and water heaters, and they even say those are contaminated because of the system, the HVAC, and it's very frustrating. So we're just throwing money out the window in our, in some cases, because we weren't quick enough to identify them. And we're learning too, but it's very frustrating. And so yes, they say everything. They basically say you have to strip it right down to the studs.
He was paranoid a lot, and he kind of got mean. So he was like trying to take stuff and sell stuff, because I guess druggies do that whenever they don't have money to get the things they need. Yeah, he just thought people were following him. Yeah, and he stayed in his room for like a week and didn't come out.
With dysfunctional families, the kids look for a different way out, and when they don't have a structured home life, they turn to something else, and usually methamphetamine is what they turn to, and it gives them an escape.
There's people breaking into vehicles, taking stereos. Tools is like a power tool is probably a good one that they like to take, because they can sell those pretty simple without going to a pawn shop. Stop somebody in the parking lot at the grocery store. Hey, you want to buy a drill? And then off they go.
Trouble with us Indians, now we go so far, and then we say, well, that's good enough. I'm good enough.
First, I really started doing it just so I wouldn't get beat up if I was out fighting on the street. And then, the more I got into it, the discipline and everything. Wes had his first cage fight, and I worked his corner. It was awesome. When he won, and I felt like I won. So I was like, next time you fight, sign me up. I'm fighting too. I've had 2 cage fights so far, and I was training for my next cage fight. It was supposed to be last weekend, and I dislocated my knee. So, yeah. So now I'm not sure. Knee permitting, hopefully sometime soon.
We had 4 homes in our housing community that had meth that tested positive in a chemical panel testing, and so yes, we do have the problem there. If you take 4 out of 17 homes that were tested, then yes, we have a problem.
So the kid comes into this world and they put him down. And so what happens is you go along in life and the points get shorter and shorter on the path of life. See, it goes around just like on the corn. And finally you become an old person. You can't afford the rent. Your hair turns gray. You're invisible. And finally the points get smaller and smaller. You walk around all doubled up. And then finally you go on. It's got another side to the story. Let's look at it the Cherokee way. Let's look at it the way of many of the tribes, or the good way. So the kid comes back, and that's the shortest point. And people say, hey, you did really good. I'm glad to see you. Hey, how can I help you? How you doing? See? And so the points get longer and they build up the esteem. The father doesn't do the punishing, the uncle does the punishing. That way the father remains the friend. That's another story. I'm not going to get on that right now. So the points get longer. Mom and dad got a bumper sticker. My kid's on the honor roll at Jackrabbit School. The kid feels good about himself. How can I help you? And finally you become an older person. And that's the longest point. And then you fly like an eagle. You see the eagle? Where did it come from? The ocean. But it's the eagle.
The main problem we have is that people are not willing to cooperate with law enforcement. They don't want to provide information. Our officers are not drug investigators. They're patrol officers. They have to respond to all crimes. It's hard to do surveillances because the officers are all known. We don't have unmarked cars. So it's a real challenge in the Indian country to work drug enforcement activities.
I understand that it is a very harsh drug, and because it is a synthetic type of a drug and can be manufactured, the people don't know what is all put into it, what the final formula is. And I think that is really frightening, that our young people do not realize where it can take them.
You know, like the people that use that stuff, they end up, stealing from their parents, their own family, stuff like that, and bad situation happens. I don't really know too much about it or how it's made, stuff like that, but I know it's a bad drug.
You'll regret that you tried me. They always do. But you come to me, not I to you. You knew this would happen. Many times you were told. But you challenged my power and chose to be bold. You could have said no and just walked away. If you could live that day over, now what would you say?
It's just a horrible drug. It's you'll do anything to satisfy it, anything to get that next hit, and it just destroys lives and communities.
There's a lot of good athletes, but they're just not following it through all the way. Just like the gal that's playing basketball now. You got to give her credit. She's really a good role model for everybody, for the girl, well, even the boys too.
Young girls start growing up, the grandmas should teach them, the right things to do or what not to do, and help them along in that way, and what to stay away from, and that I can remember when I was young, and Grandma and Mom always told us, but there are times when we did just play, when they were teaching us, and we always had time to play, which was, I think we did more of playing and listening, and then now that you're older, you have daughters that you had to teach and tell the same thing about, when they're growing up.
There was one guy that, the rest of us were running around being stupid. He was running around smoking crystal meth. The first time I ever saw it, I never knew what it was, had no idea what it looked like, and he had it on the table, pulled it out in a little bag, and I remember it was crystal clear blue. It was like a blue color. Looked at that and went, what the heck is that? And he's sitting there with a razor blade cutting it up, and I was like, oh, okay, what the heck he's doing? Stuck it up his nose, and I went, okay, that's it, I ain't touching that. But to watch the person he was to the person he's become today, I could never see myself in that world. I watched him go from a very intelligent young man, handsome young man, to nothing. He's absolutely nothing. He has destroyed his entire life, his family. He has nothing.
You could have said no and just walked away.
When you get out of rehab and you come home to stay clean, you cannot be around people that you used to do drugs with or drink with or smoke marijuana with, because you're strong when you come out, but you could still fall and start using drugs again. And it's, you know, I worked so hard to be where I'm at today. In October of this year, I've been clean for 7 years, and I've worked very hard to get here. And I'm not going to throw it away for one line, smoking on the glass pipe or shooting up, because I know if I shot up, I would die. I would OD, and that would be, and then I'd hurt my kids, my whole family. And it's not worth it, so you just have to stay away from the people that you used to do drugs with. I see my friends that I used to do drugs with. Hi, how are you? Oh, good. And that's about as far as it goes.
When Grandma sat down and told us stuff, she would sit in the center or on a chair, and we'd sit on the floor, and we'd listen to her, and she'd tell us these things, the right way, the wrong way, and cooking and cleaning, or when you get married, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. So she was really good at that. My grandma, she was a really neat lady, and she taught us how to bake. And main thing we had to do, because back then we didn't have electricity, we had kerosene lamps that we'd stay up till it started to get dark, and then we had to light our kerosene lamp. And then if we had to study back then when we went to school, and everybody got up to go to school. Everybody liked school, got up early in the morning, and Grandma would say, wash your face, get something to eat, make your bed, and you did those things. You didn't say no like our young people do now. They don't want to listen. You wait till last minute and run out the door.
Before it was, if you had a fight between two individuals in a party one night somewhere out in the desert, and they got into a fight and beat each other up, it would be fine. But now you're finding people that are being stabbed 40 times or 50 times instead of just the one or two stabs or just the fights. They're violent and very brutal attacks on each other in domestic cases, as well as just regular old fights, and that shouldn't have been anything. It's just been multiplied because of the drug.
Of things that happened here years ago affected the modern Indians now. And what I mean by that is, probably I would say the end of the 1890 until about 1934, we could practice our customs, our singing, our dances and stuff like that for the longest time, and we kind of forgot about those, things here, especially in the Great Basin area. We're pretty much spread out in the wide area here, and only times that we come together is probably time of maybe like the fishing time, the pine nut gathering, those kind of stuff. Here in the Great Basin, we tend to move about quite a bit, looking for food and stuff like that. And that pressure down on us with those customs, I think a lot of people, the old people, were scared to teach their younger kids about, because it just was bad time in that era.
Inspired life may feel
counselors who are non-Indian would say, "Oh, they're just hallucinating, these DTing." But I'm going like, no, they're focusing on something. So something's there. So, even though we may not be able to see that bad spirit could still be there talking to them. And in my addiction, a lot of the time that I was out there using, and I don't know, some of the things were real, some of the things weren't real. I don't know. I always call it my world of faceless people. There's the sounds, the music, the things that are happening, and I know people are there, but it's just their faces are like blurred out to just, and in my addiction, that's the way it was.